welcome. So here now, let's console log the result. Console.log and then result 1. Let me move this one here and move this one here. So let's say console log result 2 and console log result 3. Alright. So if we run it, node test.js, we have 10, we have infinity, we have 4. So let me make this z, let me make it to be if I use boolean now, it might work. So which type should I give it that will throw an error? I just want you to see something. Um or but rather still, let me see if this works. So now let me run it. No, this one is still, it's supposed to break it, but I don't know why it's not breaking it. Maybe it doesn't work with JavaScript. So what I'm trying to emulate here, what I'm trying to say is that for synchronous now, once there's a delay in your code, until that delay is being addressed, your program will not move to the next thing. It will remain there. It will be stuck there until it finish processing that thing. All right. But it's just like, okay, your WhatsApp now, right? Let's say you are sending image for somebody, maybe a picture of 30 MB. And then because you are sending picture, does not mean you cannot still send message to the person. Even as the picture is still trying to send, the person can even send you a message saying, you say you send me this picture, I never see am o, how far? So you can reply and say, I still dey send am o. You understand? So it means that that process is asynchronous. Asynchronous due to the fact that the image you are sending that has not yet sent does not stop you from still sending the person a message. I don't know if you understand. So that is how asynchronous process work. As I'm working on this thing, this thing is delaying, it's still processing. Okay, instead of me waiting for this thing to finish, let me move on to other things so as not to put the whole application to a halt or to a stop. So now, async await is a way to mimic that asynchronous nature in programs, because it's not only JavaScript that has async await. I think C# too does, Java too does. So other programming languages too, they have async and await. So that is where async, the keyword async, comes into play. They are asynchronous programming. So for every process, asynchronous process that you want to execute, you have to await it. All right. So it's more like you can't have an await outside of an async. So anytime you're having an asynchronous function, an asynchronous process, the process itself, you have to await it. So what am I saying here? Await, async. So instead of doing all those these dots, normally when you do fetch, your fetch method, fetch URL dot then blah 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 blah. Let's say maybe res, if you turn res, you now come and still say dot then, you now do res dot json. Instead of going through all this length, all right, the best thing to do is just to make use of your async await. Now, how do we make use of our async and await? What are we planning to do? We want to fetch the information from this URL, right? So we'll create a function. We can name the function maybe get, should we name it URL data? Oh, okay, let's say we want to make use of this to do. So we'll say get to do data. And then this function will say, okay, it's going to take a URL endpoint, right? Or we can just say simply URL. And then what do we want it to do? We want it to fetch information for us using the fetch API. Now, just like I said, the fetch API itself is asynchronous in nature. So for that reason, we now have to come and add an async to our function. Then inside of this function, for the fetch itself, that's the one doing the work itself, we have to now await it. So we can say, okay, let's response, because what you'll be getting from the fetch itself is a response. All right. So that's why you see I'm naming it let response be equal to. We now call our fetch. And for our fetch now, we have to pass in a URL to the fetch. Now, this fetch itself, because it's an asynchronous, we can't just say fetch. We have to await the fetch. Because just like somebody promise you something, there's a time frame. At least every promise normally have a time frame. Not all though, but at least some promise do have time frame. Some do have conditions attached to them. For instance, if you do this, I will help you do this. Those are the ones that have condition. Whereas others have time frame. Okay, give me next week. And for those of us that used to owe pay money, you say I go pay next month, or I go pay when we start to collect salary. So for every promise now, you see that there's either a condition or there's a time frame. So that is what we actually are waiting here. Fetch is sending is telling you that okay, I promise you, I want to go and get those data from you from this URL. I promise to send the results. So this awaits now is like, so I'm waiting for you. You promise me. I'm waiting for you to either fulfill or fail based on what you need. All right. So now for this response that this thing is going to send is not the real data. It's not the response of okay, this operation. I said I want to go and get data for you. Was it successful? Was it not successful? That is what is in this initial response. Now, how do we know? Now, before we get the main one, which is our data, let's console.log this response first, right? Now, what do we need to do next? Or what should we do next? Now, you see that if we remove async from this function, let me just bring it on. You see that this await, we start complaining. Now, why is it complaining? It say await expressions are only allowed within async functions. So that's why I say async and await work hand in hand. Anywhere you are calling your await, the function should have an async, or else you have this issue. You have your await shouting. Ehen. So according to one of my friends, he said that he's shouting. All right. So now let's call this function and pass in this the first endpoint here and see what we are going to get. So in calling this function, we have get to do's data, then we'll pass in URL. We'll say URL endpoint one. So we are literally passing in this. So what is happening here is that as we call this get to do data and we are calling this endpoint URL endpoint one, it's like we are passing in this into this. And then remember this one now, this is where it's going to come. And then that same URL is what will be passed in to fetch. All right. If you don't want to go through all this stress, you can decide to do this instead of all these things we have here. You can just have your normal function, no need for this. In calling it too, there'll be no need for this. Then you just come and pass in this URL directly inside of your fetch. You can come and you can do this one, it will still work. All right. So the idea of this is that at any point that we are calling our get to do data, we can just pass in different URL to it. So, but if you like, you can do it this way. It will still give you the same result. All right. So let me comment it out. Then let me bring back this. So now let's run our program and see what we are going to get. So we'll use node test.js. Now let's investigate. I mean investigate the column. Now look at for this thing we are printing here, this response, the initial response from fetch. You can see the response itself is an object, and then these are all the fields in the object. Now you can see it's telling us that what status is what 200. Now if you remember in our class, was it the first, second or third class where the man was explaining status code 200 means it's successful, right? So, or okay. So you can see status code 200, status text okay. These ones are the headers. All right. I believe when we come to backend, the man is going to explain more of this. Ehen. So body, readable stream, logged for. So all these ones are information. Body used false, okay through, redirected false type. So this redirected is more like the API we are using. Is this the one that will redirect us to another one? Of course, it's not. So all these informations like that. So you can see that it's definitely returning a response directly from fetch, but it's not the kind of response we will need. The kind of response we will need is this one we are seeing on the browser, right? Is this one we are seeing on the browser. It's as if this meeting want to end soon. 15 minutes. Okay, let somebody please create another link and post on the group so that we'll quickly join. So, but let's finish this explanation. So, this is the kind of one that we were expecting, not this one that is given. So, what does that mean? It means that we now still have to get the main data from this response because the data is still hidden in this response. Are we getting it? This one is like the header of the data, all these ones. But what we need here is the main data. So how do we get the data? That's when we still have to, let's say data, because we want to store it inside a variable, right? Or data, since it's more like to carry everything. So data now will be equal to, we now still have to await the response we are getting from fetch. So await response, but then not just response, we'll convert it to JSON. So does anybody knows what JSON means? What does JSON means? When somebody say JSON.
Hi.
Okay. So what does JSON means? Okay, fine. Okay. Yes, definitely we have JSON file. We have JSON file. But then when you say JSON, JSON simply means JavaScript, JavaScript object notation. All right. So is, let me say, almost all programming language, most especially the ones that they use on the web, either for front end or for back end, they have this JSON because your programming, your this thing language itself, if you are working with anything data inside of your language, it's easier to work with directly with JSON than with raw data coming from the internet or coming from the database. So that's a majority of the time. For every data you are getting externally, you have to like convert it to a JSON before you be able to use it. You understand? So now let's now console.log this data. So if we do console.log datas, so let's see what we are going to have. Now let's run our file. So we have node test.json. So you can see that now it's now returning the kind of information or data that we are expecting or that we need. Let me put it that way, that we need. So that is how you use async await with your fetch to get data from an API. All right. There is more to this API. That's just like I explained initially, where you can write to it, create, you can update, you can delete. You understand? But that one will come later on, probably when he starts back end. So, but for now, at least what he wants us to do is to get information from the API itself, which that one falls under the category of read. We are just reading information the API is returning. So I don't know, probably we can join the call. So I'll stop sharing my screen. Let's join the new Google Meet link. Person don create am. Nobody. No, make I go create am. I think say person don create am o. That's why I say Google Meet. At least una dey understand why. Eh, so make I post am. I wait. Imagine, oh, we never even do anything. We just explain how to return data. Time don. Hmm? Hmm. But wetin go happen ma? We no go we no go carry am enter React because we gats use React effect, use effect. We never even treat React standard. Talk more of to dey start dey think of use state, use effect. Mm. No, I can explain it o. You understand how to use it, but I want make the man explain first for class. Yes. So, okay, so I don't know. Are there any questions before we continue? Here's my screen. Okay. Okay. Hope this thing is still recording. Okay. Wait. Let me be sure first. Okay. So any question on what we have done?
Okay, Gideon, I want to ask something.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, when you are fetching the API, you
Yes.
use from that REST await fetch, you use URL, only URL. How do you like, and what you, the API you input in the file, you input both the code, the, and these are the to do. How
Yes.
is it able to separate the you are using? Since it's not, I was expecting you to use the variable that you use, the name of the variable that you use is, but you just use URL.
Okay. Okay. So you mean here?
Yes, yes,
Okay. So now, if there is what they call there's function definition, right? And then there's function, not declaration in this case. There's function, okay, there's function declaration, but although we are not declaring here, declaration, there's function definition, and then there's function calling. So, how do you declare a function? Now, if I say, let's use another function for example. I say async function and okay, get triple A, let's say triple. I don't know whether the triple is correct. And then I now say name, right? And now do like this. Now, this is an example of function. declaration. Now, what is function declaration? I pass in my normal function keyword. I give the function a name. I give it a parameter. But then inside of the function body, it will remain empty. So as this function is now, is not actually doing anything. So this is function declaration. So what am I saying now? This name here, I'm just telling that there's a parameter, there's something that this function should expect to come in here once I am ready to use the function. Because if you declare a function, that does not mean you have started using the function. You are not using the function yet when you are declaring a function. Now, when you are defining a function, so let's say this same function will now have async function get triple a. Let me use get triple a, and then this one will take a name and age. And then here, we'll now say, okay, once you get triple A, or instead of get triple A, let's say greet. Let's use the word greet. So greet triple A. So let's just use name then, or let's leave it age. Sha. So let's say uh, console console.log. Let's use this normal string. We'll say make, okay, let's say good evening, Mr. Now, your name will now come in here, right? So your name, let's say I am greeting you because I heard you are. Now your age will come in here, years old. So what is happening here? We have function, the keyword function, to show that it's actually a function we want to declare. We give the function a name, and then we pass in, we are giving it a parameter of name and age. So we are trying to say for this function, anytime you are ready to use this function, for you to use it, you have to provide name for the function, and you have to also provide age for the function. All right. So it's just like you go to a mall, is it mall or shop this time around? You go to buy a container, right? Let's say a food flask. All right. Once you buy the food flask, or should I say food flask in this case? What should I use? Okay. I don't know if you have gone to shoemaker shop before. There is a particular wooden leg some of them use, all right, to measure shoe. Like anytime they want to make shoe, there's a particular leg, one wooden leg structure. You see that they'll use to like put it inside the shoe, something like that. Now, that does not mean that that is the leg that will use the shoe. They're just trying to say that, okay, a leg that is like this is the one that's supposed to use this shoe. So that is what parameters are generally for. You understand? So it does not matter. This one, if we like, we'll just put N. And if we like here, we'll just put A. It will still go. But it's just that it's always advisable to use a descriptive name for your parameters. That's what are we putting inside this parameter when calling this function. So once you put a descriptive name, okay, for instance, somebody is saying coming to see this function now. The person might not know that what he needs to pass in is name and age. By mere looking at N and A, it might not click. But by mere looking at this one, name, the person will know, okay, I'm supposed to pass in my name into this function. So parameters are like what you feed the function, what the function will need to do whatsoever thing you want it to do. So you now, in the process of calling the function, or in the process of calling the function, you now feed the function with that thing. So that is where your function calling comes in. So this one we have here is your function. Okay, is your function definition. You define the function. You understand? So the last one now, that's the most important one. Once you declare a function, that function at that point is not active yet. It's still dormant. Why? Because you have not used it. You have just declared, you have just made it available for use, but you have not used it. So it's when you now call the function, that's when the usage will now come in. So for instance, for this second one now, that's a greet triple A. If we want to use the function greet triple A, we now call it by saying greet triple A. Now, based on what we have here as the function, we say the person should pass in name and age. So here now, let's say we pass in A, triple A. That's the first one. And then we pass in age. Let's say 45. All right. So if we run this program now, let me take this off. So if we run this program now, so what is it saying? Name is not defined. Okay, let me take this one off. Mhm. So okay, so let me bring this one n, because what we have here is n. We want the n to come here, right? And also for the age, what we have here is a. So we want here the age here to come in. So once you run it, you can see what is it telling us. Good evening, Mr. Now we wanted the function to make use of these two things that will be coming into the function. All right. One, when the person is calling the function. And what are the two things we put into the function? Triple A and 45. In fact, let's use dots to separate the triple A and A so that you see that it's different from this. So now, if we run it, you can see good evening, Mr. Now here is expecting what we are feeding the function when calling it here. And what do we feed it when calling it here? We feed it triple A. So we are having triple A here. I am greeting you because I heard you are. Now here too we are expecting the second information we are feeding it here, which is A, 45 years old. So this one does not affect anything. Let's say now we now say no, you want it to be descriptive. We want anybody that come, you should know that okay, what is here is supposed to be name, and what is here is supposed to be age. So here we just make this one name too, want it to come here, and we also want age too, this one too to come here. You see that if we run this program, we still end up having the same thing we are calling the function with, which is triple A and also 45. So that's why here what is actually happening here is that here I'm just telling you that the function should be expecting something, an input. And that input, I call it URL here because obviously this is a URL, right? You can call it API URL, you can call it URL endpoint, but this is a URL. So we are saying that okay, when we want to use this function, we should pass a URL. And whatsoever URL we pass in is what will be passed into this fetch. All right. So that's why here, when we are now calling it here, we now passed in this URL endpoint one, which is what? Which is this one here. We have defined it already. URL endpoint one to be this. So it's what we are now passing when we are now calling the get to do data. So I don't know. Do you understand now?
Yes, yes, I understand clearly now. Thank you.
You're welcome. So any other question before we move to wait, this thing don't lost. Okay. Make I create another desktop so that so any other question before we continue? Okay. So I'll just take all these ones off. So at least we all understand. So okay, good. To confirm, can somebody volunteer and explain what is going on here from 13 to 20? What is actually going on? Like, let the person go through the code line by line. Nobody, if your English finish as they explain, you feel not pidgin, anyone. So somebody should just help us. So let me confirm we all know what we are doing. So anybody? Ah, wow, nobody. Or should I call name? Okay. Thank God. The person that said I should call Joy, the person should start. It does not matter. Like anywhere you explain and read, Joy will take over. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. Mhm. Okay, one or two things. Okay. So Joy, your beloved friend say we should call you.
Hello, good evening, everybody.
Good evening,
Can you
Joy.
hear me?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, okay. So, from line 30, we are trying to create a function. Okay, first of all, given the task, we first checked the structure of our data from the API given.
Hmm.
Yeah. So that was what happened in 1 to 3. So
Okay.
now we've confirmed that the type of data we have there, we want to get the data from our API. So you said that to get data from an API, we use
Hmm.
fetch keyword. So now we are trying to use a function that will, once we put our URL, we can just get the data that we need. So we also said that getting the data from an API is a promise. So it either gets the data completely or it fails due to maybe the server is down or maybe any other thing that can make it to fail. So that's why we use the async keyword when creating our function. So that will take care of um, whether the data comes back to us or it fails. So that was what happened with in line 13 with the async. So the function keyword creates is used to create the function. So the name of our function is get to do data because that's what the data we want to fetch from the URL. So the URL is the parameter that we put in. So it will be a kind of link. The URL to just get the data, the website to get the data from. So that's the what we put in the URL.
Hmm.
So in line 14, we want to because whatever data we get from the URL
Yeah.
is a response. So that's why we use the res as a variable to store the the fetch whatever the URL fetches from the API. So in case it fails or retrieve the data you want, we put the await. So the await works with async. Okay. So that's what happened in line 14. So the rest now has retrieved the data, but it's not in the form that we need.
Hmm.
So for it to be in the form that we need it to be in JSON format. So we now use await again to get the JSON format from the rest that we have already because somewhere in rest our data is hidden. So we now use the data keyword to get the actual data that we want from rest. That was what happened in line 15. So we now okay, so we now retrieve the data using console.log. So in line 20 now, we now called our function and put the URL that we want, which is the URL endpoint 1 to get the data that we need. Thank you.
Beautiful. I wish we were in a physical location now. That's it. They should clap for you. That's brilliant. So, okay. Or should they clap online? Hmm? Okay, there's online clap. Oh. Correct. Well done, Joy. So, just like what she explained, that's exactly it, right? We have await. Now, just like I said, you await. You can't use await outside of an async. That's why you see we tested it, right? We removed async. And when we removed async, you can see all the await trying to tell you that await expressions they're only allowed within async functions, right? So you have to now bring back the async. And async, just like I said, it's like okay, asynchronous programming in fetching of this data. Good. Let's even try something. Now let's console.log. Let's say software track is on fire. No, not on fire. Let's say on water. Eh, let's say on water. Right? So let's now still run this code and observe something. So node test. Now let me ask you, do you observe what happened? Now let's even do it this way. Is on water. The next one, let's say is on air. Is on air. Only us now. We don't turn avatar software benders on water, on air, on fire, and then what's the last element? Sef? Air on earth. All right. So let's run this now. Ordinarily, how code is supposed to work or is supposed to behave is that as you are running your code, it's going to be running line by line. And if that's the case, it means this our data, our information we are getting from the URL is supposed to print first before all of these ones. But let's run our program to confirm either our bias or our knowledge. So let's check. Now, if you observe, you find out that all the operand that are coming after of this function, they are all printing here, right? On water, on fire, on air, on fire, on earth, even before this one gets to print. Now, why is that so? That brings me back to the explanation of async. Asynchronous does not block, you understand? Because to fetch this data, we are fetching it from an external source. We don't know the time it's going to take for that data to arrive. But with this asynchronous, we are telling the programming language that see, if this thing is going to take time, don't wait for it until it's finished. Be doing other things you have left. Once you are done and once this one is ready, it's going to give you the result. So that's why you see when it came here, it was like, fetch, you they waste time. Oh. I say, make you fetch data for me for 2 seconds now. You still dey wait. Well, yeah, oh, I don't leave you. Make I go do other things where they grand. So it came, it printed line 22, it printed line 23, it printed line 24, it printed line 25. Before it now finally come back to the tax here and print it. That was when this one was ready. So that is async. If not for this asynchronous, right? Let's say this fetch is not an asynchronous this thing because by default functions are synchronous. That is one must run before the other. So I wish this fetch is not asynchronous in nature, is synchronous. It means these ones will not run until this one is done running. Once this one is done running, that's when these ones will now follow after based on the chronological arrangement of our program from top to bottom. So I don't know if we have any questions. Okay. Uh, so please go on. I think I can see some people raising up their hand. Okay. Yeah. So so anybody, and you can ask your question now. You ask your question. No, just stop it. Okay, okay. So now, right, uh, there is a way you can actually delay the running of any program on JavaScript, right? So the thing is, at this point, me I've forgotten the how to do it, but we can just do a quick Google search and say how to delay program. Or does anybody knows? So we can put a delay to the running of any of those. Okay. So they say set timeout, right? So we can use set timeout, and that one is more like delaying a function. I was thinking of if we can just delay the running of just normal console log. So let me see, delay, how to delay console log. Let me see so that we don't have to create another function, console.log on JavaScript. Okay, so it has to still be through a function. So we have to use the set timeout, and then we use an anonymous function. All right, so let's do this. I'm going to copy this, and then let's go back to our code. So for water, air, fire, earth, which one should we delay? Let's delay fire. It's the fire nation that attack all the other nations. So, or let's delay water, since water was the last nation that the fire attacked. So I'm going to now paste it. So this set timeout is just simply the name of the function is just set timeout, and then it takes an anonymous function. Of course, I believe we all know what anonymous function is, right? So I'm going to bring this water inside, and then after your anonymous function, it now indicates the time, the delay you want it like. So I think it works in milliseconds. I know milli is 1,000. So this 2,000 simply means 2 seconds. Because it works in milliseconds. So 2,000 simply means 2 seconds. So let's delay the printing of this one by 2 seconds and see. All right. So let's now run our program. So I'm going to clear the terminal, and then let's run it. Now, do you see what happened? You see that the rest, we did not delay air, fire, earth. And because we did not delay air, fire, earth, you can see that air, fire, and earth, they printed immediately, right? But now, we now delayed water by 2 seconds. So because of that 2 seconds delay, this function, the to do data, get to do data function, was executed even before the software track on water. That's why you see after these three, we now have the to do's. Before at the end, after 2 seconds delay, we now have our software track is on water coming in. You understand? So I think, does that answer your question? Okay, you're welcome. So any other question? So this set timeout is actually also an asynchronous. It's something you can trigger. It's an as one of the asynchronous stuffs that you can trigger in your program. Most especially if you don't want one particular thing to run immediately, you want to like delay it for some time, right? You can bring in the set timeout, and just like I said, it takes in an anonymous function. We all know what an anonymous function. Some call it arrow functions, some call it anonymous functions. Some programming they call it closure. So depending on the name you want to call it. So some programs they call it closure. I know that ladies will be familiar with closure, so that's why I bring it so that in case you forget anonymous and arrow function, you not forget closure. So anonymous or arrow. I hope this is the spelling of arrow, sir. So any other question? Okay. So no question. So let's continue. Now, once you fetch your data, just like I said, the main thing is for the data you are fetching, right? you might not need everything in that data you are fetching. Okay, for example now, users. If you see these users now, the information users is returning is plenty. So the users now is what is URL endpoint 2. So if you fetch URL endpoint 2, right? If we run it, sorry, if we run it now, node test, you can see that it's returning plenty data. So the first thing you need to do, just like I said, first confirm the structure of the information or the data your API or URL is returning. So here now, copy this. So let's confirm the structure of what this users is returning. I'll copy it. I'll create a file. Let's say I'll call it data.txt. And then I will paste our output here. I just want us to analyze it. Now, if you look at it here now, just like I say, this is an object. Everything is inside an object, right? And then inside that object, we now have users. And users here is an array, as you can see here. The users is an array inside of an object. Now, the object is holding the users and is also holding the total number of the information in this users array. So the total number of information in this users array is 208. For now, we are not skipping anything. That's skip in terms of, okay, pages. Now, limit 30 is trying to tell you that, okay, despite the fact the total is 208, per page, we are limiting the view to be 30. We only show you 30. So if you want to see, okay, now we have from 1 to 30 right now. If you want to see from the next 30, which will be from 31 to 60, that's when pagination have to come in. The man have not treated that one in class yet. All right. So let's wait until he treats it. So you have to employ pagination and all of that. Now, inside user, we say users is an array. What is an array of what? Is an array of objects. You can see another object inside of the users. Now, this is one of the objects here. This is where it stops. ID one, first name, last name. This is for one person. This is another object for another person. All right. So now, if you want to now look at this, let's say we want to now use this particular structure. Let's say what we need or what we want to pick is just first name, last name, age. Okay, so let me ask us, what do you want us, do you guys want us to pick here? The things that you feel is the most important when it comes to information about the person. This is for one person. So what do you think is the are the most important information here? Just basic information about the person. Okay, somebody is talking. Okay, so first name, last name, and the email, right? Image, okay.
Yeah, we need the image, we need the first name, last name. We can also need the email address.
Email,
The
okay.
gender,
Uh,
the age.
yeah, maybe
So and
we need gender too. We need gender, we need name, maybe full name. You can create a name called full name that merges first name, last name, and that
me
merges first middle
first
and
name and
last
last
name
name, right?
together.
Okay, okay.
We can have a name called full name that merge first name, middle name, and last name
And
together.
last name,
Then
okay.
we can have, yeah, like one single entity. Then we have
Good.
gender, then we have
Okay,
email, then we
okay,
have age. You can also have their phone number. Then
okay.
their image must be there.
So age and
Uh,
phone
I think
number.
that's yeah, I think that's the most important thing. Yeah.
Good, good. So
I don't know. I'm
now
thinking that's the most important thing.
important thing. So now we say
Wait,
same
I want to ask a
and
question, please. I'm
okay,
seeing data dot. Sorry, I'm seeing.
okay.
Is this you are recording this video, Abby?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay,
It's
I'm seeing
recorded.
data dot txt, right? Um,
Oh yes,
how did
okay.
you do
This
that?
one.
When you passed the
Okay, I just created it, right? So
yes, how did you create it? Like, how did you pass it in the? How did you create it?
okay, this is just
Like,
a
I
new
want to
file.
know.
just new file,
Yeah.
right? So just
Okay.
data, yes, data. So let's say
Uh,
data user data, so user data dot txt.
okay.
So it's just a
So how
text
did
file,
you?
and
Yeah. How
then
did you? Okay.
okay, I just copied it
Okay.
from my
Just copy
terminal.
am.
Exactly.
Oh,
So
okay,
it's just
okay.
copy and
I
paste.
thought you. I thought you wrote a code that actually automatically when it got the
Okay,
data
no,
from the URL, then it pastes it
it's
automatically
paste
to
it.
that creates
And
the file.
no, no, no. But
Okay.
you can
So
write a
that
script
means
for
that
that. You can write a script for that, Sha.
now.
But uh,
Okay.
okay, not now, Sha. But you can write a script for that if you want to. So, but this
Okay.
is
So
just
that means
copy
that
and
now
paste.
from that data.txt.
Yes.
All right. So from here now, we can actually have query that okay, from data. So we can export this. How do we connect with this data.txt?
Okay, good. Now this is not what we use,
Okay, let's
right?
just watch.
And this is we are going to use anything we are doing. We are going to do it directly inside of this our function. You understand? So, but then this particular one here is just for us to why I brought it here is so that we can what are they calling it? Observe the structure of our data. We can see what and what is contained inside of our data. You understand? For instance, now we say, okay, the data is returning itself is an object. Of course, you can see it. This curly bracket, it shows it's an object. The whole data is returning as an object. And then if you extend it, you find out that inside the object, we now have an array called users. We have total, we have skip, and we have limit. But these ones, for now, these ones are not our concern. We'll still get to when it comes to displaying it from one to another to the next. That's when this one will become important. But for now, this one is not our concern for now. So the next concern is our users. What do we have inside our users? Because that is where the data or the information of the users are. So it says if we open it, you now find out that is an array of objects. And then for each object, this is what each object is having. Let me So this is what each object is having. This one object here. If you come, comma, this is another object, comma, this another object. So we now say, okay, now we want to get the most important thing for every object. Every object is like a record of every individual of each and every user that is stored inside of this user's array. So we are now asking that what are the most important thing that we need to get from each user or from each person. So we say his first name. Of course, we have first name. So I think somebody said we can combine first name and last name into a single variable called name. So it means these two can go together as name. Then we have image, then email, then gender, then age, then phone number. Then Joy said also ID. All right. So the what we want to do now is to see how can we go from object to object from the beginning of the array to the end of the array, getting this information from each person. So that is what we want to do now. That's why first of all we need to even check, okay, what information do we need to get from each person before we now start writing our code. So I don't know if that is clear. So any question? Any other question? Okay, so I think we can now continue. So from here now, if you look at, let's analyze this together. All right. Let's say we have an array of maybe items. We have one, we have two, we have three, we have four, we have five, and we have six. Now let me ask you a question. How do we get to access each and every one of these array? Or first of all, let me open another file because I want us to really analyze this. One thing about programming is that sometimes if you want to handle everything as bulky as it is, it might look confusing or you might not know where to start. So that's why I'm trying to break it down like little by little. So from there, we'll be able to have an idea of what will now come and apply here. So I'll just create another file. I'll call it test object dot js, right? So I'll pick this object. I'm not picking everything. Let me just pick, or no, not this one self. Let me come to this first. Where is it? So let's create our own. So let's create our object. Let me name this one const object. So let's create our own object. Now inside of our object, let's now create an array. Let's say users, right? Now inside of this array, let us do it this way, that each person want to get some information of each person, like let's say first name, last name, just first name, last name, first name, last name, gender. All right. So now, why do we have to use array to collect that? It's because number one, array is a collection that helps you take many things together into one collection. It's just like an album, right? You hear somebody say, album, album. What is album? Album is just something that carries plenty picture in one place. So by the time you want to watch picture, you don't need to where you keep this picture, where you keep this picture, where you keep church wedding picture, where you keep traditional wedding picture, where you keep parents of bride, parents of groom picture. Everything is in your album. So album now is a collection of pictures represented as one, which is the album itself. So that is where array is always used. When you have collection of any item, it could be collection of numbers, it could be collection of strings, it could be collection of objects. Let's say you have more than one object and you want to bring it, put it just inside one place. You can employ array. So we want this array to hold, let's say for example, three people, right? Three people from this class. First name, last name, gender, or let's say four. Let's do gender equality. Two male, two female. So now, the first person now, we say we have first name, right? Okay, so this one is an object, so it's not going to be an equal to, sorry. It will be this column. So first name. Now, first name, which person should we use now? Okay, somebody says Zini, right?
Ezine.
Okay. Ezine is a celebrity. Oh. So last name. Hmm? So let me just use Zini as the last name, right? Then gender. So gender will be what?
Male.
Male. Ha. Zini, do you agree? Should I use male for you?
Which way? Friday says last day Friday.
Last name
Which way?
Friday. Okay.
Don't worry, I'm coming for joy.
Okay, no problem. So gender now. Let's say female, right? Now this is the record of one person. Okay. So let's create another record for another person. So who will be the next person? Okay.
Joy.
So first name, Joy, right? So last name. Hmm? So last name is it Bola or Abi who? Eh?
Ah!
Okay. Ayo. They say it's Ayo. Okay. Oh. So gender, female too.
Is who's gay? What's the word for gay? Bisexual, yes, bisexual.
I don't know
What's
the word.
going on here? Are
I
you
don't.
are you pairing people together?
I don't
I'm
know.
seeing Joy and Hayo. You know they give them family names. Hey God, I beg you.
So first name
Na
Friday,
only you
Abi.
remain.
Friday. The last name. Eh? Okay. But the exchange. They say an exchange program that they do. So gender, male, right? And then the last person. So who should we give the last person?
Simeon.
Simeon, okay? First name. Simeon. What of last name? Eh? Last name?
Ibe.
Eh?
Ibe.
Ibe. Okay. Then gender. Male, abi? So now what we have here is we have an object. Inside of our object, okay, so we can now come and add another thing here. We can say total, right? What is the total now? Number of users we have. This is one, this is two, this is three, this is four. So we put four here. These are the total number of users. So if you look at what we have here, this information, this is an object. We name it obj, right? And this object is carrying users and total number of users. Now, for this users is an array. No time you say this thing don't they complain. No. Okay, never they complain. So this users is an array of objects, with each object representing a person. This is a person, this is another person, this is another person. So let's say we have something like this now, and we just want to access these users. We don't want to access total. It's just the users we want to access. So in this case, to access just users, is just for us to call the name of our object. What is our object? Our object name here. Okay, let's console.log it so that we'll be able to see. Our object here is obj, right? So to access anything inside of an object, you always use the dot notation. You understand? Now, there's another way you can actually access um properties or anything inside of an object. You can use this. I don't know if it's going to work. Yes, it will. So either you use the dot notation or you use this particular way. Bracket, your quote, either single quote or double quote, and then what you want to access inside of the object. So either you go with dots, which many people prefer, dot. In this case, we have users, we have total. Our interest is the users. Or you use this method, object, your bracket, either double or single quote, and what you want to access. Right now, the object has users and total, but we want to access users. So either of these way, right, you get the same thing. Okay, Joy, go on.
Can objects square bracket zero work? Where zero.
Okay. Something like this, right?
Yes.
I'm not sure, but let's test it. That's the beauty of programming. Anytime you are not sure of something, you can always test it and see. So let me open up my terminal and then let's run this program and see what we are going to have. So node, okay, this one is test object. So you can see that this one will not work for object, but at least we are very sure that it will work for array indexing. So Joy, do you get it now? Do you see it?
Yes, thank you.
You are welcome. So anytime, and it's good, all right. It's good that when you are seeing something, you are programming, and then you look at something, be like, it's as if this thing will it work, will it not work? You can always test it out, and it's good like that because it builds your curiosity. Always be curious. Will this one work? I know it works for array, but will it work here? And then you try it out. So let's bring back what we had. So either you go by this way or you go by this way. Some people prefer this, others prefer this. Okay, Simi, go on.
I just wanted to say that I got a notification that the meeting is ending in 12 minutes.
Now wow, this meeting I die today. Oh. Hey, but anyways, we'll soon finish. So let's just do this one. Let's print out this one first, all right? Then we'll see how we can move to the next meeting. So if we console.log now, or we run this program, sorry, you can see that it's now printing this everything that is inside of these users for us from this our object. So we now have this array of the first person, the second person, the third person, and then the fourth person. So now, since this is now an array, right? If I copy this one here and I bring it here, so obviously I will comment it out. You find out that since this is an array, it means this one should be at index 0. This one should be at index 1. This next one should be at index 2. And then this next one too should be at index 3. So let me ask a question. Assuming I just want to access information about joy, what am I going to do here right now? Because this one as it is here is already returning this array for us. But our target is joy here. So how can I access joy?
You put square bracket 1 after user.
Good. Now, after this one, because this one will return this array for us. But you know that normally for array, to access any element of an array, you use index. All right. So I now want to access joy, and joy is having index of what? 1. So by the time we now come and add index of 1 here, we now go back and run our program, just like how Joy said. You see that we'll now be able to return just that record of joy. So why am I bringing this? I'm bringing this so that you know how you can actually navigate each of the record and get whatsoever information you need. So now this particular one is giving us a single information, right, about joy. Okay, let me do it this way. Let's do it incrementally. All right. So this first one we return all. This one we return just joy, and this one. Okay, let me take this one up. So for this first one, this is what is going to return for us. For the second one, it will return the information about joy alone. Now, what if we want to now access Joy's first name and her last name? Or let's not even bring two things into the matter now. Let's just face one thing. What we want to just get Joy's first name. What are we going to do? Remember, this structure is an object. How do you access object? Either use dot or this. This structure is an array. How do you access array? Through indexing. But now, this structure is an object. How do you access the field of an object? Through dot or this way. So now, how can we get first name? This one now, we return this object, but we are not satisfied. We just need the first name from the object itself. So how do we go about that? Hmm? So if this, what we have here is returning this structure, to get first name, and this structure is an object. Okay, I know maybe this is the reason why it's not looking like object. So let me put it this way so that it will not look like object. Uh, okay, see me go on.
Okay, I'll just give it a try.
Okay,
Could double indexing work?
okay, double indexing. Sure.
Like we sort of like place users inside, I mean call the index the first time for users,
Okay,
then call it again this call index 0 again in
okay.
order for us to be able to get the first name. I
First
don't
name.
know. I just talk my own.
Okay, okay, good. So before you go, right, now look at it. How do we access array? We use indexing, right? So look at what we
Yeah.
have here. To access this array, this is an array of 4 objects. Now, to access that of joy, is
Okay.
that joy is at index 1, and we use indexing of 1 to get joy, which gave us this
Okay.
information. But now, before this array, what we had was this object, obj.
Yeah.
And how do we access, inside of this object, we have users, we have total. Now, how were we able to access this user inside of our object? we used either the dot notation or this same index, but the index now, we passed in the key of what we want to get. So for this one now, if you look at it, what you said is correct, but then in a way, look at it very well. If we are passing in something like this, what should we pass in here to get the first name of Joy?
Okay. I think we should pass the exact first name, Abby.
Beautiful. So now, once we pass in first, you can see that immediately we open the bracket here, it's already showing us first name. And if you don't want to
First
use
name.
this, right? If you want to use this method, you can still use the dot method. So you see that immediately we put dot, it's showing us first name. So either you go by the dot method for dictionary or you go by this method. Any of the two
Mm,
works. You understand?
okay.
So beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So another person, if let's say we want to get the last name, how do we go about it? Another person. Joy was raising up her hand. So Joy, how do we get your last name? Okay, go on. Joy, go on. Go on, Joy, you can speak.
We just pass last name,
Exactly.
square brackets. Yeah.
So either you go with the square bracket or dot. The most important thing is you pass in the last name. So now once we run this program, this file, you can see that this one is giving us the first name, Joy. This one is giving us the last name, Ayo. So I don't know if you guys understand how from a large structure, you can start breaking it and entering into the structure until you get the desired result you want. Okay, go on. Yes, yes. Oh, okay, good question. Now, for indexing, right? Indexing is exclusively left or preserved for arrays, right? Whereas key value indexing is for dictionary or dot notation because this is indexing. This is also indexing, but not really indexing in terms of number. It's in terms of key value. You understand? Uh-huh. So I don't know if anybody understand. So once you are dealing with an object, you go with your dot notation or your key value indexing. If you are dealing with array, you always go with your indexing. See me go on.
Okay. I wanted to ask,
Yes,
as we have started now with
yes,
this console.log,
yes,
objects users with we have started with indexing. So
yes,
now if you want to get the first name or the last name, can we go with the dot
yes.
dot notation?
Dot notation,
Okay.
yes. So for instance, let's say this first name now. We now say, we don't want to use the indexing of dictionary. We can put dot first name. And then let's run our program and see. So do you see? First name, we still have our joy. And then last name, Ayo.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. So how many minutes do I have left?
No, I'm not sure. Let me check the timer.
Three
Mm,
Okay,
minutes.
3 minutes.
3. Wow. So let's okay. So it's as if we open another Google Meet. This one will be the last one. So now this final phase, we just the data we have, we just find a way to get the most important information from each person, then console log it, and I think we'll call it a day. So another Google Meet. So you guys, you can just wait on the call so that I'll just paste it to the this thing. You just join directly from the Google meeting, but I'll still drop it on the group chat. Hope you people did not see my face. That is not my real face. So where chat today? Oh, chat don't hide. Okay, this is it. So I've dropped it here. Then I'll drop it on the group too, so that Anybody can join. Okay. Okay. So me too, I will join. Okay, I've joined already, sir. This one are the former one now. Uh, okay. Ah, now these are the come. Make I put a made it open to anybody. Uh, okay, so we are welcome. Let me share my screen. Where is this screen, sir? Mhm. Okay. So this thing is still recording. Okay, still recording. Uh, what do we have? Okay, our code editor, right? Hmm. So now, at least, I believe that we all now have like an understanding, at least, of how to actually get information, a particular information we need from the overall structure we have. All right. So I will go back to our main program. Now, just like we said, from this place, we said the most important things or the things we want to get are these things here, right? Name, first name. Let me go back to this file. So let me put it here so that we'll be seeing it. So let me where is this thing? Is it control command? So we say we need the first name and last name, and then we'll concatenate everything inside of as name. We put the first name and last name as one name. We'll get the image, we'll get the email, we'll get the gender, we'll get the age, we'll get the phone number and the ID. All right. So now here, what is the data that is being returned from this data? This is the this thing of the data, the structure of the data. This is it here. So it's an object of users. An object, inside the object, we have users, and this is what we need. We need users. So we'll go back to our code here. For now, we'll take this one, we'll comment it out. So here now, we'll say, okay, oh, let users, is it users that is there? Yes, users. So we say let users equal to datas dot what? Users. Now, what are we trying to do? For this structure is having users, total, skip, and limit for this dictionary that we're expecting. This dictionary now is the one that is coming directly as these datas. But what we need is just these users. We don't need total for now, we don't need skip, and we don't need limit. So that's why what is happening here is that I'm not saying, okay, take datas, then dot users, take the users part of the dictionary data and then store it inside of users. That's what we need for now. Now, what we are supposed to do, all these ones we are doing here is just to access one at a time. But we want to do it in such a way, we'll be accessing one at a time, but we'll access everybody in this array. But we'll be doing it one person. After the first person, we'll move to the next, we'll move to the next. But we are doing it one at a time, right? So how do we achieve that? Number one, you can use your for loop if you want to. Number two, you can use your map method. I believe the man have used map method in the class. All right. So you can also use map method if you want to. So let me ask, which method should we use in this case? Team map or team for loop? So what should we go
So
for?
what should we go for? Map.
Map. Okay.
Follow.
Map. Okay.
For loop. The man has used
Follow.
map in class. I want to see what for loop looks like.
Okay. So if you know you are for map, how many people are for map? Let's count. Then how many people are for loop? Minority carry the vote. They don't they cheat minority since. So today, may minority carry vote. So
Both will work.
how many for map? Another person say map for loop. Eh?
And for both, let's see how both will work.
Zini. Zini and sense. Say let's do both. Me than planning that if you say map, I'll say okay, go and try for loop. And if you say for loop, I'll say okay, go and try map. You say we should do both. Hmm? Okay. So not an issue, Sha. Now somebody said the man have used, yes, the man have used map in class, all right. So now let's use for loop. We'll still come back and use map, or I will ask you guys to use map like in your own spare time to check it out yourself. So but let's use for loop. Now God so kind in JavaScript, unlike before where you need to use indexing to move from one array element to another, right now you don't really need that. There is a kind of map they call for loop, sorry, they call for off. All right, so that's the kind of one we are going to make use of. So for loop now, we can say, for this is how the syntax goes. For here you can use const or let, right? But in this case I'm going to use const. So for const user of users. Now what am I saying here, or what is the language saying here? For const, this user will be a placeholder for the individual users of users. So how it's going to work is that if you say for users of, yes, for user, for const user of users, it's like I say, okay, pick this one, assign it to user, do everything you want to do with it. Once you are done, I will now move to the next one again and assign the next one to the user. Do everything you want to do. Once you are done, I'll move to the next one again, assign it to user. So that is what this one actually means. So at every point in time, as this for loop is moving from one of the record, student record or user record to another, this user will be a representation of that particular user at that time. So now, of course, next comes our code. So what do we say we need? We say we need first. Okay, somebody is raising up their hand. Please, you can go on if you are raising up your hand. Okay, Simi, go on.
Sorry to disturb you. I wanted to
Okay,
ask a question.
okay.
The what's it called? The const that we are
Yes,
using now,
yes.
is it like a must, or
Good. That's what I
like do
say.
we have?
You can use let, right? If you want to, and you can use
Okay, so
const
we can either use const or let.
or let.
So it's
Yes.
not like the for loop can just be defined as for user of users
No, it
straight
can't.
up.
Yes, it can. Now, the reason why it can't is because what is happening literally here is like, let me illustrate it, right? I hope this illustration is not boring, Sha. Now, this is what is happening. Let me just use a simple one. Now, let's say we have this is an array, right? And then we have uh first name. Let's say Friday. Last name. Let's say um Wheezy, right? And then next name, first name. Make I use our teacher name. Make it no verse. May nobody screenshot this one go show am o. Last name. Okay, I know what I'll do. I'll put C sharp. So if he says his name, I'll say it's Francis name. Francis lecturer. Our own Francis. So now this, we have this, right? So by the time we say for, I say is either use const or let user of users. So let's say this array is called users. Then here I say our code. Now, why do we have to use this const or let? Is because what is happening behind the scene is that once this for loop starts, it will start with the first one. So for the first one now, it will come and assign user. So if we are using const, it will assign user at that point as const user and then give it this information here first. That is for the first iteration. Now, once it gives this, and once you run your operation, whatsoever thing you are running, the next one, it will still call the same user again. If you use const user, and then this time around, because it is done bringing in this one, the first one, it will move to the next one, which is the second one. It will not assign the second one to user. So that is why you see that we have to put in this const, because what is happening is that behind the scene is actually always assigning each of the individual elements or item in the array to user. I don't know if you understand, Simi.
Yes, I
uh
understand.
Another thing you can do if you don't want to do it here is that you can come here and do let user, right? And then here, I don't know if it will even work. E no even work sef. I think it's going to work, but from what I'm seeing, it's not working. Say cannot redeclare block scope variable user. Who is any user here? Is there any user existing here? No. So it will not even work. But actually, that's what is actually happening, Sha, behind the scene. Okay, so let's remove this one and see if it's going to work. So this is another way you can do it. You declare the user outside. Inside, you just call it this way. But it's always advisable to do it inside of your for loop. So
Okay.
yes, so good. So for let user of users, now what is the structure we are expecting from this user structure? We say the array is going to give us this one per person, right? So for this one now, we say the most important thing is the first name. Now look at the spelling of the first name. Okay, we say ID, first name, last name. We say we want to combine first name and last name as one. So let's come back to our program here. For let user of users, we say console.log. We'll bring in this, what are they even calling this one? I don't even forget what the man call am daddy. I mean, wait, I bet the man call himself.
String interpolation.
Thank you, Joy. String interpolation. So now we now put in this. So this first one now, what is going to go inside of this place is user dot id. Now let's confirm. Is it id? Yes, it's id. So we have user dot id. For first name, this is first name and last name. Now let's go back to our this thing. Now for the next one, right? Let's say uh let's use this one as a separator. All right. Now the next one we say we want to combine first name and last name as one, right? So here we now have this. Should we do it like this, id equal to, or should we just do it normal, let everything just print as one? So which one? Or better still, let's do it this way. um let's say console.log, we'll be following it. So let's say id, right? It's just that the length might not be the same. That's just the problem. So which one should we do? Should we indicate it id equal to name equal to, or we should just print it together? Okay, nobody's saying anything. Let's continue. So now the next one is our user at the name, and we say we want to present first name and last name as one name. So we can say this first name, of course, space, then comes last name, right? So always take note of the spelling. Here, how is it spelled? First name, N capital letter, last name, N capital letter. You spell it exactly that way. Of course, I made a mistake here. It's supposed to be user dot. This one too. It's supposed to be user dot. Now, after name, what do we need? We say image. How was image spelled here? Okay, just normal image. So we'll come here and then we'll put this one and then user dot image. Now, before I even go forward, hope we know what is happening here. This one we are using string interpolation and this dollar and this open and close curly bracket. Like, hope you understand what is happening. If you don't, you can let me know so that I will explain.
No.
Okay, no, good. So what is happening now is that normally how string works is that you give string. Let me show you something, right? Now I love to be practical. Let's say let name. I know somebody's name have suffered here, but so let's just use the name. So let name be joy. Now we want to console.log. We don't want to console.log joy directly. Why? Because tomorrow they might come and change the name from joy to another thing. So if we come and say console.log and we say good evening joy, what if tomorrow they now come and change the name from joy? It means that they'll have to come and start looking for what function is printing joy and then manually change it here. All right. So instead of doing this, we don't want to pass in joy here directly. Instead, we want to pass in joy as a variable so that tomorrow, if we want to change the name from joy to another thing, we will just come here and change the name. And once we change the value of this name variable, it's going to reflect here. So instead of doing this, we can do it in two ways. So one way, we'll still use this our normal string, right? Here, we are going to put space. Then we now use what they call concatenation. So we do plus name. This is one way of doing it. Now, you know what is happening here is that we are going to print good evening, comma, and then space. Always make sure you put this space. If you don't put this space, what is going to happen is that the name will come immediately after this comma, which of course it will not look too good in the eye. All right. So we give it space. So what you are doing here, that you are telling it that okay, print good evening, oh, but attached to this good evening, I want you to print whatsoever value is given to this name variable. So by the time we print, we run this program. This one is which one, sir? Okay, it's test. By the time we run node test, you see that now what we are having is good evening. Okay, please let's take this one out first because it's printing these plenty things. So you see, it's telling us that good evening what? Joy. So if we want, we can change this one and say no. We want the name now to be Ayo. So by the time we now run this one, we have good evening Ayo. So you see that we are no longer touching this one, this line 42, we are not touching it at all. Anything we are changing with regards to the name, this is where we are doing it. So this is one way using concatenation. Concatenation. The second way is by using that string interpolation our teacher said. Now, how does string interpolation works? Console.log. Now, this console.log will now bring in this one, two tilde sign. So, still the same thing. Good evening, right? Instead of just passing in the name value directly, because tomorrow we might change it, we'll not pass in the name directly. Now, we want whatsoever value of this variable name. That's what we want here. So anytime you want to pass in a dynamic value, just like how we did here using concatenation, in string interpolation, what you use is a dollar sign and then this curly bracket. So anything that goes into this curly bracket, any variable that goes there at runtime is the value of the variable that will be replaced here. So here now we'll now bring in name, right? So here I'm going to comment this out, and then this name we can take it, let's say joy, all right? And then let's run our code. So if we run this code now, you can see we have good evening joy. So let's even say we change this name to, let's say Simi, right? If we run this code now, look at good evening Simi. So that is how string interpolation, or that's actually the use of string interpolation. All right. So even this one we are using string interpolation. If we like, we can still use this normal concatenation, but it's just that I prefer using string interpolation. All right. So, but it just all depends on you what you want. Good. So okay, this is where we are. Let me bring this one back. So we say first we say okay name, okay, user ID, name, image. So what's the next one we say we want to fetch? email. So we now check how are they spelling email in the data we're expecting. Okay, it's normal email. So we'll come back here and using our string interpolation dollar. So we'll say user dot email, right? So the next one, what do we have? We have gender. So I think gender is still the same gender. Where is it? Okay, gender. So we'll come back to this, and then we have our interpolation user dot gender, right? So the next one is what? Age. So I think age is still normal age. User dot. Okay, we have not put our dollar, right? So user dot age, and then the next one. What do we have? So we have user dot phone. So let's hear the phone number. How they spelled it out. So phone, they you see, they just use phone. That's why I see it's always good to observe the structure. You understand? Because imagine we use phone number, it will not work. So they just use normal phone. So we'll come back here. We have phone. And then lastly, finally, what other thing? User, okay, we'll put ID in front. So these are all the informations we are expecting, right? So let me put this line here. Or there's no need to put this last line. So now we are expecting that once we run this program, out of all this data, the original data is getting from these users is only going to print the ID, the first name and last name, the image, the email, the gender, the age, and the phone of each and every one of the record currently that we are currently fetching from this URL. So now I'll clear this, my terminal, and then let's run the program and see what we are going to have. So node test. So now let me see. Let me take this one. Okay, let me collapse this. So you can see index one. Look at the first person, Emily Johnson. This is the image. So the image is just simply a URL, a link, a direct link to the image that they have. All right. So let me go back. This is their email. This is the gender. This is the age, and this is the phone number for the first person. For the second person too, this is it. Third person, fourth person, until remember we say it returns 30. To get the other ones, that's where pagination comes in. So but it returns 30. So I don't know. Do you guys now understand the task? Like generally, this is what he wanted us to do. But just that he wanted us to now display it using React. But of course, we'll not do that today. We'll go and do that on Monday because I don't know. Maybe I don't know, Sha, but we'll go and do that on Monday. But technically, this is it. And if we decide that, if you decide that okay, your own is quotes, you want to pick quotes. You know, we've checked quotes, what and what we need in quotes. So this is for quotes. For every of the quotes, there's ID, there's quotes, there's author. So your own now is to pick which one do you want. Do you want to pick everything? Do you want to pick just the quote? Do you want to pick just the ID? Do you want to pick just the author, or you want to pick everything? So it's the same process too that we followed, that we used in getting each of these individual information for each person. That's the same way you also follow and do for the, what are they calling it? For the others too as well. So this is using for loop. So map loop is not really too different from this. If you are using map loop, what is the array you want to map? This is the array users. So we have users dot map. Now map takes in, now this is how map works, right? Once you call the map method, it will take in a variable. Now this variable is just like the variable that this for loop is taking in. Let user to represent each individual record for every time your for loop is moving. So this is the same thing with map too. This user will be for each of the individual, because map will move from one of the record to the next to the next. So at every point is moving, it's going to be storing it inside of this user, just like how this for too is storing it inside of this user. Now we now want it to return. What is it going to return for us? As it's going through this user, we now want it to return this console log. So I'll copy it. So this is what we want it to return. Do you guys understand? Now, why you see that we are not putting any extra bracket inside of the map is because this is just one line. I wish we have other things we want to do inside of the map apart from just printing this information of the person. That's when we can now open that curly bracket. And inside the curly bracket, we'll do whatsoever thing we want to do. But in this case, we just want it to move through the array, all the elements of the array. And as he's moving, he's giving us a particular record. And now we are now consoling this information about that record before it moves to the next one. So now, if we run this our program, let me expand this terminal. Let me clear the screen. So if we run this, you can see it's still printing out all of these things for us. So any question before we call it a day? At least we don't try. We don't do 2 hours. I know Simi wants to eat. So any other question?
Sarai has been keeping us first as individuals. Thank you so much. It's not that I even want to eat though. I want to join another meeting like this.
Okay. No wahala.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
You are welcome. So any other question? All right. So hopefully, I don't know. Is there any other thing you guys want us to touch? Since we still have tomorrow class, so I don't know. Then let's see how we can plan, and then which time will be best. Since I know tomorrow is Sunday, people go to church at different times. Hmm? So everybody's quiet. There be need for
I
class
think by
tomorrow.
I think by this time tomorrow is okay too.
Okay. So what should we treat tomorrow? What do you guys want us to treat?
I think we should do that bank, the exporting and importing all those things, those
Okay.
stuff like that. If you can able to do.
All right.
Yes. That is
Okay. All right. So, all right. It's settled then. So we'll meet same time by 4. All right. So that by 6 we'll be done. So everybody have a nice day. Smart, I hail you. Thank you for joining. Thank you for joining everybody. So thank you. Take care. Okay. So I don't finish. I don't leave.
I swear I dey surprised when you calm down no talk. I think say you
I don't come out.